Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So today's video we're going to be taking a look at rank 4 Invisible Woman, checking out what she can do in Act 6 Chapter 2 quest number 4. Now quest number 4 is specifically kind of suited for Invisible Woman just because we do know that this is the global node that punishes you extremely harshly. If you do make a mistake, all the damage you have done to the opponent while he had that yellow shield active is going to be reflected back to you. But Invisible Woman inherently is a great matchup for this node in particular, just because whenever you're invisible, if you do make a mistake, your opponent will not connect with you. They will miss the attack and basically you will be safe from all the damage you would have otherwise received. And now we can definitely see that Invisible Woman is trying to make most of it. However, I did make my mistake. I did lose my invisibility. I still have quite a bit of practice to do with her, and I'm just kind of like starting to get in the hang of the things, and you will definitely see that it will be noticeable throughout the run, because in the morning I decided just that I need to record some invisible footage, preferably in Act 6, and I just popped in a random fight and I started to go, and it was going well in this fight. Then we're gonna mess up on Black Widow fight, and then the rest of the run is gonna be pretty much perfect. So I just kind of casually decided to try and complete the entire path with Invisible Woman and only with Invisible Woman, just to showcase how reliable she is, how well she can reward you for playing well. Also the fact that she can regain a lot of health after your mistakes, especially if you drop a couple of level 3 attacks, and there's basically a lot to love about this character. But yeah, so there we go. We once again entered on invisibility state, and once we're invisible, pretty much the name of the game with Invisible Woman is your dashback intercepts. If opponents have projectile special attacks that you can dex fully, that's perfect. Then that means you will be gaining more and more vulnerabilities easier, but still, regardless of whatever the opponent does, your name of the game is dashback intercept. So here Yellow Jacket went down, not too much of a hassle, was not the cleanest fight, and neither will be this one, because we all love that Black Widow 3% chance to evade. Especially from the start of the fight, we can notice that the 3% definitely seemed to be fairly common. I mean, like, she must have won a jackpot in RNG in order to be evading as much. However, at this point, she smacked me down to 6%. And I was like, yeah, I'm pretty much dead. However, yeah, 3 consecutive waits, wonderful. I still decided to try and keep going to see if we can pull this back, and if we can pull back the entire run with Invisible Woman. So we are in quite dire situation here. Black Widow, still with her waits, is at like 93%, and we were down to 6. However, slowly but surely we are recovering our health, which is perfect. Now, whenever we drop our level 3, we do gain extra amount of force field charges, which basically serves as like an extra heal if you are running suicides. So whenever I will need, and I will feel that I need more health, I will be resorting to my level 3s instead of my level 2s, just to help me recover more health quicker. Additionally, not activating her pre-fight ability once again will improve the amount of health I can regain via force field, because I will not be depleting it with my basic attacks. So if you need to heal up Invisible Woman, don't activate your pre-fight ability and you will have some solid heal going on there for you. Now we're back at 24%, and we can see that we have slowly but surely taken down Black Widow to 48%. So we have made a decent progress. However, we still need to be careful of those evades, but we're doing our best to kind of like stack some vulnerabilities on her and try and finish up the fight as quickly as we can, because as we all know, more vulnerabilities mean more damage for us, and that is quite perfect when you're facing stronger opponents, Act 6 opponents. And in this case, a rank 4 Invisible Woman is dealing with them fairly fine so far. Also, you have to admire her crit rate while she's invisible. Vast majority of your attacks actually do end up critting, so your damage is quite high. It's quite up there. It is in fact higher than it looks by the numbers themselves, just because of your crit rate. However, there we finished off Black Widow, and we're going to be moving on to the next fight, which is going to be Deadpool X4. So we're going to be taking then War Machine, Thor, and whoever's after. And at this point, I'm not in the best shape. Therefore, I did not activate my pre-fight ability. However, for this fight still, I will be more or less spamming my level 2 attacks without focusing too much on my level 3s. Now, once again, I do have to be careful, especially while I am not invisible, because if I'm going to make a mistake, I'm going to get punished hard for it. Such is the theme of this quest. However, as soon as we enter our invisibility, we don't have too much to worry about, because if we do make a mistake, invisibility will save us, and that makes you so much more confident going in for all of these intercepts, doing all of these risky plays, because once again, the worst thing that can happen is you're going to get kicked off your invisibility state, but you will take no damage. You will not get realistically punished for your mistakes. And at this point, we have 7, 8 vulnerabilities, which is working fine. And we can see that even without pre-fight ability, this guy is going down fairly quickly, and that speed is definitely improving there. 9 vulnerabilities, quite a lot of extra damage coming from this mechanic of Invisible Woman. And yeah, so long as we don't get kicked off our invisibility, we should be able to finish this fight relatively quickly, even without a pre-fight ability, which would increase our damage output otherwise. So here he drops another level 1. We're gonna respond to that with our level 2. He goes unblockable, but we don't care because we rely on dashback intercepts. And the fight is pretty much ours. 14 in vulnerabilities. He probably will not survive. Now, I do make a mistake here, though. I did slip up, but instead of being knocked out as regular champions would be, we just lost our invisibility, but we had already dealt enough damage to knock out this Deadpool X-Force. Now, next fight is a tricky one. Just because it's War Machine, right? You can't evade War Machine's level 1. However, we can still do our best to play around this node and try and push him to level 2 whenever we would be put in a compromised situation. Additionally, if need be, I can let him shoot off that level 1 and just lose my invisibility on purpose, however, take no damage from it, which is also always an option. But we have to get invisible before we do that. Here now we have established our invisibility, and our job is going to be basically to try and stay in it for most of the fight, because it will also be our kind of like safeguard should we happen to mess up, like it always is. Just this time it's much more important, because if that yellow shield icon is active, we have dealt any damage to this guy whatsoever and he drops his level 1. Typically it's lights out for most opponents, so you do need to be conscious when you try to push him to level 2, and when is that shield active, when it isn't, so on and so forth. However, so far we have done a great job. 33 hits in, he's at 65% health, we still are invisible, he has 12 vulnerabilities, and we're just keeping at him. We can see that he's going down relatively quickly, and keep in mind this is unduped rank 4 Invisible Woman. I'm also not running any Nick Fury synergies or the kind to help me with healing or give me extra attack. However, there exactly what I mentioned before happened. I used my invisibility to basically shield myself from his level 1. However, at this point, I do need to re-enter my invisibility state and rebuild my vulnerabilities, because there is always an offset to your damage if you rely on this invisibility to protect yourself from incoming attacks. You do lose your damage output. But at this point, we're fairly close to finishing him off. We're going to drop another nice level 2 here. It unfortunately did not crit. However, we're still not too far off from finishing this fight. And here we just basically need to stay still, await these couple of hits, and find an opening, because I believe at 11% we should be able to kill him pretty much with a combo, and 9%. And yeah, so the fight is over. 79 hits. Once again, fairly easy going for Invisible Woman. Now, we have not recovered too much health during the course of these runs. However, I was also spamming my level 2 attacks instead of my level 3. So now that is exactly what we're going to try and do starting this fight. We're going to be trying to build up Invisible Woman's health throughout these fights, and obviously at the same time take down the opponents as effectively as we can. Now, Thor is another opponent that's perfect for Invisible Woman, because his level 1 is quite easily avoidable by triggering Dexterity Mastery. There is not too tricky fight mechanics involving this guy. So slowly but surely we can see that our vulnerabilities are starting to stack up. We are doing more and more damage. At the same time, we have reached level 3, which is exactly what we're going to use right about now. That's going to give us 100 more force field charges, which will be used to mitigate the suicide damage. However, willpower damage will be healing us all the same meanwhile. Therefore, that is kind of like a perfect way to heal up Invisible Woman. And as you guys probably have noticed, still dashback intercepts is the name of the game when you play with Invisible Woman, because that helps you kind of like push opponents past bars of power, dexterity, without relying on kind of like parry or blocks, and without being knocked out of your invisibility. So this is a great character to kind of practice your dashback intercepts, and also at the same time you feel safe while you're doing it, just because the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to lose your damage output, but you will not automatically get KO'd into oblivion. And yeah, at this point you can see that we have made it up to 40%, and that Thor is about to go down with 16 vulnerabilities on. So now we're moving on once again to the next fight, which is Iron Man. And this should also be fairly easy fight for Invisible Woman, especially if we can maintain our invisibility throughout most of the fight and make sure that we have plenty of vulnerabilities active on Iron Man by the time he reaches his Arc Overload state. That will mean that we can completely shut off his healing, because the vulnerabilities in fact are like actual active debuffs, which has its upsides and has its downsides. For the downsides, we're going to be able to see that in a boss fight. However, for upsides, that definitely is a great news for anybody who likes Despair Mastery, because you are able to maintain permanent debuffs on opponent that interact with Despair Mastery, therefore can completely shut down any and all healing in the game, basically. So yeah, it definitely synergizes extremely well with Despair Mastery. So at this point I have reached my level 3 relatively early, which is exactly what you're going to drop in order to kind of increase our heal even further. I want to get up as high as possible before the end of the quest, basically. And at this point we only have 4 vulnerabilities, but the fight is fairly fresh, only 40 hits in it. And slowly but surely, once again, our damage output keeps going up, and Iron Man keeps going down quicker and quicker, and we're doing a bunch of dashback intercepts. We're awaiting his level 1, and that is the magic formula of playing Invisible Woman. You need to be comfortable doing your dashbacks. You need to kind of like know how to play against each matchup if you want to do the biggest amount of damage you possibly can. At this point we're dropping another level 3 attack just to increase our heal even further. So we have went from 40% at end of the previous fight to 58% in the course of this fight, and obviously we are going to be able to heal up even more. So that's definitely fairly solid regeneration rate just by using Suicide Masteries and the Force Field mechanic interaction. And yeah, so he's nearly down to his like arc reactor phase. He's at 11%, so Arc Overload kicked in. However, it's not healing him from anything at all, because there are like 15 debuffs, 20 debuffs in this case. And yeah, that completely shut down the healing 100%. He didn't even get to regen 1 HP from it. And now next fight, Sentry. Now Sentry also is quite easy for Invisible Woman, because you can dex his level 1 and there are multiple hits, so you can get more vulnerabilities per level 1. However, that level 1 is a bit kind of like iffy to dex at times. Sometimes it still clips you because the timing there might be a bit weird. But nonetheless, at the same time, we do not want to rush this fight. Our goal is to heal up a bit more. At this point, we're at 66%, which is a massive improvement, which we were at 5%, I think, at the lowest in the Black Widow fight. So yeah, we have pretty much regained majority of the health here. And now at this point, I'm invisible. I'm going to try and stay that way. And basically just once again rely on my dashback intercepts, dex his level 1s, do as much damage as I can. Sentry is kind of like a perfect opportunity to build up your vulnerabilities quickly, therefore do more damage. And even if you mess up a couple of level 1s, and you're going to have a decent chunk of these vulnerability debuffs already. And yeah, so that's basically the name of the game here. 14 vulnerability debuffs. We're comboing him in Oblivion. Now I did make a mistake there. I did make a slip up. However, if I drop my level 3 at this point, I can still pause that expiry kind of my invisibility for another 6 seconds, and I do get the extra healing, so you can kind of use that level 3 to be a little bit of a safeguard when it comes to protecting your invisibility. However, it wears off after 6 seconds apparently, and then your invisibility still goes away. But 59 hits, we managed to take him down to 32%, which is not a bad kind of like showing at all, keeping in mind that this is only a rank 4 champion. And you definitely have to admire kind of like the consistency and persistence of this champion, because if it was any other champion, I would have been KO'd at this point already, because I did make a few slip-ups. I did lose my invisibility a few times, and a couple of those times were when that yellow shield icon was active. Therefore, basically any contact with me would have KO'd me out instantly. But yeah, that is exactly the reason why I enjoy Invisible Woman. She protects you from your own mistakes and from your own misplays. And now moving on, just a couple more fights left before the boss, and we have Winter Soldier. Now Winter Soldier is obviously fairly familiar opponent. It's everybody's punching bag. There is not too much to talk about this guy. We know that his level 1 is easy to dex, has 2 shots, so it gives us 2 vulnerabilities. So by all means, we should be able to get rid of this guy fairly quickly. Also pay attention to the fact that I pretty much haven't used my pre-fight ability for most of the quest, just because I was trying to recover as much health as possible. But now at this point, we are closing in on our max health already. Fight after fight, we have been crawling our health back to top. And now that we have arrived there pretty much, we can once again start using our pre-fight ability for the next fights, should we choose to. But yeah, at this point, 8 vulnerabilities, 9, and he's going down fairly quickly, 40 hits. So the initial kind of like fight ramp up might be a bit slower, but if you manage to stay invisible, her damage output towards the end of the fight definitely is impressive, which is kind of like once again, my biggest critique for the champion and to the designer team. And one thing I wish that they would change, I wish that they would cap it at like 20 invisibilities, 20 vulnerability charges, and just make them more potent, make them 2.5 times more potent a piece. And that way she could ramp up even faster, and it would be even more exciting in my opinion. Now her Dr. Voodoo, this is the one fight we're going to have class advantage for, and we did in fact activate our pre-fight ability. However, Dr. Voodoo, his special attacks are not the easiest to dex, kind of, especially level 1, and I will struggle with it for a bit in this fight as well. I will definitely kind of like lose my invisibility as well a few times, and I will not be able to get many vulnerabilities. But despite that, this will not be a long fight, just because we have that class advantage. We have the kind of like increased damage output due to that, and I will basically just rely on that to increase my damage and finish the fight at a decent pace. But back to the fight. So we have our 2 vulnerabilities on Dr. Voodoo. We are invisible at this point, and we can see that he's going down fairly quickly, even though we're not dealing the highest amount of damage. Now I do make another slip up there. I do lose my invisibility, so I will have to wait for the cooldown to wear off and then enter back in it again. But yeah, so here is a kind of like a good example of if the matchup is a bit kind of trickier, then it would require more kind of practice for you as a player to get the best out of this champion, and which is something I like, which is something I want to attempt to do. I want to keep playing Invisible Woman more and more to make sure I can play her better. She's definitely one of the champions that kind of like, even though she's extremely forgiving for your mistakes, she wants to make you play her better, kind of thing, because it can feel frustrating when you can make a mistake and a mistake and a mistake and you lose your vulnerabilities. But on the bright side, you're still alive, so you always get this second chance and get back in there and try again and not make a slip up. So I think that is probably one of the biggest aspects I enjoy about the character. But nonetheless, Voodoo fight's over. Now we have only one fight left against the Hood before we take on the Kingpin champion, Kingpin boss. But the boss obviously is a horrible matchup, and this one is also going to be a bit dodgy. I will make a slip up. I will lose most of my health. I will basically survive by scratching my teeth. Now, because there's another element introduced to this fight, which is Bane, which can obviously be fairly tricky to manage, especially with this global node as it is. And yeah, basically my mistake started at the point where I wanted to push myself and I wanted to trigger vulnerabilities and my invisibility here from that level 1, and I ended up parrying it instead, and then I ended up eating a couple of hits, and with that, simple as that, my health is pretty much gone. Now, obviously, since I am playing as Invisible Woman, I will have my opportunity to recover some of my health throughout the fight. Obviously, we have class advantage, we have established that invisibility and a couple of vulnerabilities on Hood, so damage output is quite good at this point. And if it wouldn't be for that one mistake at the beginning of the fight, this would have been fairly easy fight. But I only have myself to blame. I'm not perfectly comfortable triggering dexterity of Hood's level 1, and that basically is what caused the error there. But aside from that, obviously I do need to watch his power bar, because we do not want to push him to level 2. At the same time, need to watch the Bane timer there. And now finally I get to use my level 3 to transfer Bane, make sure he is past 1 bar of power, below 2 bars of power. So I was kind of waiting for a perfect opportunity in order to use my level 3 there, which he just did, which now is working out quite well for us. He immediately drops his level 1, we can get back in there, another dash back intercept, bait out his level 1 basically just in time for another good Bane transfer. And we did get some heal back with that increased force field from level 3. So we're pretty much ready to close out the fight. Now, as we definitely do need to talk about Kingpin matchup. Now, Kingpin is pretty much the horror matchup for Invisible Woman, because not only you have class disadvantage, he also shrugs off all your debuffs. Whenever your debuffs do get shrugged off, you get kicked off from your invisibility, and that's going to happen again and again and again, and you can't really ramp up your vulnerabilities on him. Therefore, you do not get any damage increase whatsoever, plus you are a class disadvantage. And now, even though I was doing fine for most of the fight, and I was kind of determined to drive this home for Invisible Woman, we're not doing too bad here. We can definitely see that we're going to be in for a long fight, just because we can't amp up our damage. Class disadvantage boss, a lot of nodes. I do eventually make a mistake at like 220 hits. He was left at 120k health, and then I still decided to keep this in family and finished off with Human Torch using the pre-fight ability of Human Torch, which is also a freshly ranked up champion of mine, which I want to feature a bit more in future of the channel. But that will pretty much do for today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope you guys can appreciate the Invisible Woman footage in Act 6. I thought she did fantastic by being able to clear entire lane by herself. But that's it for today. Hit the sub button, and I'll see you guys.